Oh my gosh, look, I went through a phase where I was obsessed with looking through all of the translations. I was obsessed. Um, and because and you know what? I don't know why other people aren't. You should really be concerned. And, I always ask my dad stuff and he just doesn't care. He's like, no, it's all the same. And I'm like, it really isn't all the same. I've looked into, if you really look in detail and depth at these translations, they're like the Darby translation is horrible. There was this somebody made a list of all the really really messed up uh, things that Darby changed in his translation, and they show you like side by side.
Yeah.
I don't know if they use the King James. It doesn't really matter. They just show you like what generally most Bibles say, and then they show Darby's translation, and it's pretty wild. Like, what translations did you use before you found the Keys of the Kingdom?
Well, I used King James, obviously, because I'd watched Vythe. I always call him Beef. Walter Vythe. And yeah, he'd gone into that whole translation thing. But they're so pro Protestantism and the Reformation. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not pro Roman Catholic, obviously, but I just realized the Reformation was just not what we would not what they believe it is.
When you look at the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation, it's like, do you pick the Roman Catholic Church or the Rosicrucians? Take your pick, because that's what it was, basically, right?
It seems like an infight with the secret societies, basically. Who's going to be the top secret society? That's
Absolutely.
what it seems to me.
And or was it an infight, or did they want that? I mean, either way, the outcome was now we have 1,000 denominations. That was the outcome. Okay, Calvin and Luther and of course they were leading it. Okay, and I'm not saying that they were bad men. However, you already know they have questionable, sketchy backgrounds. When I was doing all my research on the translations, before I found the Keys of the Kingdom Bible, which again you helped me find, I was using a combination of the Wycliffe Bible, and I know that uses, I know Wycliffe and the Tyndale Bible. I was using those two, and I was using the Geneva 1599, which was my favorite one until I found the Keys of the Kingdom one. I didn't even like using the King James. I like using the Geneva 1599, and that was right before the King James. That was right before.
Like I kind of got rid of all the new translations, the NIV and all that, and I got King James. And then as I was doing more research into that, I'm kind of like, oh, I don't even like using this now. What the hell am I supposed to use?
Right.
So what I did is I usually online, or I do actually have a physical Strong's Concordance. And so what I would do is I would go into each word and get my own interpretation of it, basically. What is this actually saying based on the Greek or the Hebrew word? So
yeah, I don't know why more people don't do that though.
I only knew that because my mum, she had an old Jehovah's Witness concordance, right? And she used to look up the meaning of stuff, and that's obviously flawed because of all their stupid interpretations. But that was kind of like, oh yeah, you can have this extra resource to understand what the actual meaning is. And then I knew about the Strong's, so I thought I'll get myself a Strong's Concordance.
I found what I wanted to find. So we're talking about translation. So here we go. I'm going to give you some examples of why translation is so important. Okay. For instance, and I took a bunch of screenshots of this. This is Genesis 6:4 in the King James Version. I'm just using King James as an example of an okay translation here. It says, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which are of old men of renown. Now, I'm going to read a different one. This is the Living Bible. In those days, and even afterwards, when the evil beings from the spirit world were sexually involved with human women, their children became giants. The children became giants, of whom so many legends are told. Now, hold on a second. wait a minute. So we go from there were giants in the earth in those days, which, by the way, we know that Tyndale, I have Tyndale right here, it says there were tyrants in the world in those days, or bullies or whatever. So giants doesn't mean, it just means tyrants. It means like Walmart is a giant. Microsoft is a giant. So then we have, there were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men. What that means is, that means that the sons of God were not fallen angels. They weren't angels. They were just the line of Seth came in and they saw, man, I love how Walter Bythe explains this. He said that
it's
there
so
was
sarcastic when he says it. That's what I like about it.
Do you remember what I'm talking about when he goes, you see the sons of Seth were doing their work, and then he looks over and he sees the daughter of Cain and the daughters of Cain looking all nice with their little mini skirts. And basically it was like the good people on Seth's lineage that were doing the things that God wanted went over and saw that the girls on the Cain's lineage were,
what happens later on after the flood? Look at Samson and the Philistine women. They were worldly and they were fashionable and they were probably wore a lot of makeup and all that.
Right.
It's like a model or a movie star or something like that.
I just want to read the translation one more time, just of that one part. When the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. Next one. When the evil beings from the spirit world were sexually involved with human women, their children became giants. Okay? Now, do you see the difference in those translations?
It's ludicrous. Like, they've made this whole fairy tale up that goes along with the It's like, where the hell did they get all this information from and the words?
I just can't get over that. Okay? And that's just one example of how these translations do make a difference.
Yeah, for sure. And you get a new Christian who comes along and reads that, and it's going, oh my God, there's aliens.
Wow, beings from the spirit world.
Yeah.
The spirit world. No, it was just the lineage of Seth.
I'm curious how these spirit beings physically have babies with women. But anyway, because there's only one immaculate conception, right?
We already know. I love the argument of that there's fallen angels. When again, we already know that it's just the lineage. It was the men and women that were from Seth's lineage. They were, you could say, the good people at that time, and then the people that were not believing in God, loving God, were of Cain's lineage. And instead, they're trying to say that the sons of God were angels, and the daughters of men were actually just women. Like human women. That's not what that means.
What about the sons of God in Genesis chapter 6, verses 2 and 4? Let's read them. The sons of God, or the sons of Elohim, saw that the daughters of men were of fine appearance, and they took women for themselves from all those whom they chose. The Nephilim were in the land in those days, and also after that, during the time when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they gave birth to children by them, and these became the mighty men who were of ancient time, men of renown. So the Nephilim were a Canaanite race, a Canaanite tribe, living in the Israelites' future promised land, whom the Israelites went out to spy and initially came back terrified of them, but Joshua and Caleb were men of a different spirit, and so it says they were in the land and also after that. So how did they get there if the flood wiped out every single person in the world? Numbers chapter 13 verse 33 says, and there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak. But who were the sons of God who went into the daughters of men? Well, it's easy. Imagine you read a novel or a play and you come across somebody, say, called Jacques. Well, what are you going to do? You come across him in the first or second chapter, and you wonder who he is. Well, you've got to read the rest of the novel, and then you'll find out. And just the same it is for finding out who the sons of God are. You just look up other occurrences of the same phrase, and you keep reading. You can't stop at Genesis 6 and make a decision. However, before we go on, let's just say Christian mythology gives an interpretation of sons of God in Genesis 6, and it would like to tell us that the sons of God are evil, fallen angels. So let's go looking. So we can find in many places who sons of God are, and so we have to be selective, but I'm going to give you every phrase of sons of God and some others that help build up the picture. So, to build our taxonomy of intelligence, I'm going to go first to Deuteronomy 14, verse 1. You are sons to Yahweh your Elohim. Right, these were the 12 tribes of Israel under Moses, and this is Moses speaking to them. So these are the chosen people of God who came under the first covenant expressed in Exodus 19. Then Deuteronomy 32, verse 8. When the Most High divided their inheritance to the nations, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the boundaries of the peoples in keeping with the number of the sons of God. So also the chosen tribes of Israel. Then Hosea chapter 1, verse 10. Now, Hosea talks about the breaking of the first covenant and the promise of a new one. And under the new one, it says, it will be said to them, you are sons of the living God. So those will be those under the new covenant, those who, that is, accept the terms of the new covenant. Then next we go to Job chapter 1, verse 6 and chapter 2, verse 1. Well, I've already dealt with the sons of God there in video number 172, and I have shown that they are the sons of God who present themselves to Yahweh just as any God-fearing people do, right down here on the earth. After Job, we go to Job 38, verse 7. The sons of God shouted for joy. Well, I've also done a video on that, video number 171, and I've shown that the sons of God in Job 38, verse 7 are stars. So sons there standing for creations of God. And sons of God there is a figure of speech called kenning, and you will find this footnoted in the Keys of the Kingdom with many other examples. Right, so then we come on to the new writings of the New Covenant. And the first phrase of sons of God is in Matthew 5, verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. So, sons of God are peacemakers. Don't sound much like fallen angels to me. Matthew 5:45, Jesus says, so that you might become sons of your Father in the heavens. And this is according to behavior as sons of the kingdom. Luke 6:35, again, behavior of sons of the kingdom, and then you will be sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful as well as to the evil. How amazing. Sons of the Most High, those who behave according to the demands of Jesus for the sons of the kingdom. I'm going to read them all because hearing all these is actually the healing from all that teaching about fallen angels, to hear what sons of God really are in the words of the Bible is the healing and the deliverance. Luke 20, verse 36. To as many who received him, he gave them authority to become sons of God, to those who are believing in his name, that is, in Christ's name. So those who receive God through Christ, those are sons of God. Don't sound much like fallen angels to me. John 1:12, to as many who received him, Christ, he gave them authority to become sons of God, to those believing in his name. John 11:52, this is about the high priest. Being high priest of that year, he prophesied that Jesus was about to die for that nation, and not for that nation only, but also so that he, that is Jesus, should gather together into one the sons of God who should be scattered. So here the sons of God are the sheep of the 12 tribes of Jacob, those believing. 1 John 3 verse 1. What immense love the Father has given us that we should be called sons of God. Immense love. Sons of God, those called sons of God, are those who have received the immense love of God. And they have received that because they have believed in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ. They're still looking for evil angels. 1 John 3 verse 2. We are now sons of God, and it is not yet brought to light what we will be. We do know, however, that when he is brought to light, we will be like him, for we will see him as he is. So these sons of God will see Christ and be like him. 1 John 3 verse 10. In this, and that is the context, being unable to sin, because the sons of God are brought to light, and the sons of the slanderer. So by those being unable to sin, we see the fruits of the sons of God, and they are distinguished from the sons of the slanderer. A distinction is made between the two. Now the sons of the slanderer are evil, and they are humans, of course. Nothing to do with angels. 1 John 5 verse 2. In this we know that we love the sons of God, when we love God and keep his commandments. So those who love God and keep his commandments are sons of God, and they love the other sons of God. Romans 8 verse 14. For as many who are impelled by the Spirit of God, these are the sons of God. So those who are led by the Spirit of Christ and of God that they have in them. Romans 8:16 describes them as we are the sons of God, and if sons, also heirs, truly heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ. So sons of God are heirs of God and heirs of Christ. In fact, joint heirs with Christ, because he is our brother, so say the scriptures. Romans 8:19, the creature's persistent watching with a lifted head is assiduously waiting it out for the revealing of the sons of God, so those expecting the kingdom. Romans 8:21, the creature himself also will be set free from the slavery of decay into the freedom of the glory of the sons of God. Oh, what glory! They will be set free from the slavery of decay. Romans 9:8. These sons of God are not sons of the flesh, but sons of the promise, counted as seed, that is, seed of Isaac. We're running out of spaces for finding sons of God to be anything other than those chosen and loved by God. 2 Corinthians 6:18 describes those who are called to be separated. And then you will be my sons and daughters. So if you obey and leave religion and are separated, then you will be his sons and daughters. Galatians 3:26, you are all sons of God through faithfulness in Christ Jesus. Faithfulness in Jesus. Last chance. Philippians 2:15. Do all things without murmurings and disputings, in order that you might become blameless and unspoiled, sons of God, without rebuke, in the thick of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as luminaries in the world. There we are, sons of God, set quite in opposition to anybody or anything evil. If I read all those for the first time, even including their sin in Genesis 6, I would want to be called a son of God, having received his immense love and being mightily favored by God. This is your healing from false teaching, hearing these passages, because there is no such thing as evil angels. It is the invention of mythologizers. It is the myth of dullards. Revelation 12 they like to quote, but we've done that. Those are people. That is in my video number 178. And Ephesians 6, we've done that. Video number 5. That is about world rulers. The phrase in there is translated from the Greek cosmocrator. And these are people, world rulers. We know who they are. It's all over Christendom, all your devils and your evil angels and your hellfire, your Satan and Lucifer. It is all finished. Our minds are cleansed. It's occultic, those evil teachings. Occultic and mythical garbage. They are adding it to Genesis 6. They are adding what is not there and is scripturally disharmonious from what the Word of God teaches sons of God are.
What do you think
so
their
bizarre.
motivation is, though, in saying that? Like, why do they want to stop that?
Because it
train of
fits.
thought?
It fits perfectly into the paganized, the pagan, thought of gods, other gods. Okay, if you're saying that fallen angels are banging human women, that is like almost right out of Greek mythology.
Yeah, it goes back to all that
It's the same
Kabbalistic sort of nonsense. Like
why do they want that? Look, our God is not a confusing God. It says something like that in the Bible where, God is not a God of confusion. Things are actually really simple that God says, and it's man's interpretation that complicates it. So this idea of fallen angels banging human women and stuff is almost like a fantasy of men, okay? And it is fantastical to think these things, but it's just not true. And maybe they said it to get people's attention back in the day, or that's why they tell people they're going to burn in hell and there's going to be pitchforks and these things, because it does get your attention, okay? But
do you think maybe they
that
believe
shouldn't
this?
be
Sorry.
Yes, I do. Well, are you saying the people at the very top?
Yeah, like this is why they're so obsessed with keeping their lineage, because they think that somehow they're descendants of
Cain?
Sorry.
They do think they're descendants of Cain.
Well,
Did you know
they
that?
do think. Do they really?
The Masons, at least, the High Masons, the High Masons thing.
Well, there's that whole Tubal Cain thing they go into, but
Yes, there is.
But do you think that they believe Cain may? Well, there's that whole serpent. Cain is Satan's child with Eve.
They believe that.
They
I think
believe
they
that.
believe
So
that.
do you think that they think that Satan is like a real life angel and their
Yes.
descendants? Yeah. Okay.
Do you remember if you looked into the Albert Pike and his Morals and Dogma?
Long time ago,
same with Helena Blavatsky.
Yeah.
She thought the same thing. So it's not a coincidence, and I'm sure Hitler thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Because he was into Helena Blavatsky.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And guess who else was into Blavatsky? The most wicked man in the world, 666, Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, Aleister Crowley.
Okay.
Yep.
And Aleister Crowley was in John Nelson Darby's class. Okay, when Aleister Crowley was a little boy, he was in John Nelson Darby's church. Okay, the Plymouth Brethren and the exclusive Brethren. these secret societies that Darby was in.
have to
So
look
they're all connected.
Where did the secret rapture doctrine originate? The secret pre-tribulation doctrine is not found in the Bible. So where and when did it originate? You may be surprised to learn that it wasn't until the early or mid-1800s that there was any significant group of believers around the world that looked for a rapture of the church prior to a 7-year tribulation period. The secret rapture teaching was not taught by the early church. It was not taught by the church of the first centuries. It was not taught by the reformers. It was not taught by anyone except a couple of Roman Catholic theologians until about the year 1830. Its origins. The Roman Catholic Church had to come up with a view of prophecy to counter the historic view of prophecy that the reformers had used to identify the Church of Rome. The little horn of Daniel, chapter 7, the mouth of Revelation in chapter 13, and the harlot of Revelation in chapter 17. This new scheme of prophetic interpretation became known as Futurism. It was a Roman Catholic Jesuit priest named Ribera who, in the days of the Reformation, first taught that all the events in the book of Revelation were to take place literally during the 3.5 years reign of the Antichrist. Later, Emmanuel Lacunza, also a Jesuit priest, built on Ribera's teachings. He spent much of his life writing a book titled The Coming of Messiah in Glory and Majesty. Lacunza, however, wrote under the pen name of Rabbi Ben Ezra, supposedly a learned Jew who had accepted Christ as his Savior. He did this so that the unsuspecting Protestants would accept his book, for the Protestant world then wanted nothing from a Jesuit. His book was published in 1812. Now enter the name of Edward Irving. Born in Scotland in 1792, Irving discovered Lacunza's book and fell in love with it, translated it into English, and it was published in London in 1827. Then Irving began to hold Bible conferences throughout Scotland, emphasizing the coming of Jesus to rapture his church. Later, J.N. Darby was introduced to the secret rapture doctrine by the Irvinites. The Irvinites were the followers of Edward Irvin. They also introduced to him the famous book by Rabbi Ben Ezra, which is, if you recall, the pen name for the Jesuit priest Emmanuel Lacunza. Darby was himself a prolific writer, and from that time a constant stream of propaganda came from his pen. His writings on biblical subjects number over 30 volumes of 600 pages each. Darby developed and organized Futurism into a system of prophetic teachings called dispensationalism. The secret rapture teaching was introduced into the United States and Canada between the 1840s and 1870s. A Congregationalist preacher by the name of C.I. Scofield came under the influence of Darby and the Plymouth Brethren. Scofield became a strong promoter of the teaching that had been promulgated by Darby, whom he considered, quote, the most profound Bible student of modern times, unquote. Scofield incorporated this teaching into his Scofield Reference Bible. 3 million copies were published in the first 50 years. Through this Bible, Scofield shrewdly carried the teaching of the secret rapture into the very heart of evangelism. Many of your modern Baptist pastors rely heavily upon Scofield. There is one final link in the chain of development and spread of the rapture theory that should be mentioned in passing. Schofield, and Darby influenced D.L. Moody. Moody was influential in the early Pentecostal movement. How, you may ask? The Assemblies of God are today by far the largest Pentecostal denomination in the world. In 1914, they ordered their Sunday school and study materials from the Moody Press. So the Assemblies of God believed what the Moody Bible Institute taught, which included the secret rapture. And so it is today. Great numbers of churches have discarded the historic teaching of the church concerning prophecy and have replaced it with a concept invented merely to deceive.
But they specifically want Jerusalem to be their headquarters. Now, for many Christians, this will be extremely shocking to hear, and I totally understand that, but I ask you to hear me out. Everything I present here is solid evidence. It can be researched by anyone, and all the facts are available for every person who has the courage to look at these facts. So why is nobody aware of this? Why is the entire Christian community worldwide, which consists of roughly 2 billion people, why do they support the state of Israel blindly? Let us go back into history a little bit. For many centuries, Palestine was a very peaceful region where Muslims, Jews and Christians lived in harmony with one another. There was no hatred, there was no war. This is something unnatural that is created by higher powers in politics and in the financial world. But these people had no issue with one another whatsoever. It's only when the Rothschilds started investing into establishing this state that hatred was artificially incited between different people groups. So after centuries of living happily in peace and in harmony, suddenly there was this invasion by forces that are called Zionists or Zionism. Zionism is indeed the philosophy or the movement of people who want to establish a new Israel as the center of a one-world government. In order to accomplish their goal, they, however, had to do one very important thing. They needed the support of the worldwide Christian community. They needed the churches on their side. So, in the 19th century, before Israel was founded, the Rothschilds worked closely with several people in Christianity. They attracted a man called Cyrus Schofield. He was a convicted criminal lawyer, an expert in fraud and forgery. He was asked to create a new Bible, the Schofield Study Bible. This was the first Bible in all of history to contain hundreds of footnotes. In these footnotes, a new doctrine was introduced into the American Evangelical Church, which says that there was to come a new political military Israel, and that would be the place where the Messiah would come to rule the world. And they said that would be the fulfillment of the promise that God had made to Abraham, and that would also be the fulfillment of the promise that Christ would return to earth. This Bible was then spread all throughout America through the Moody Bible Institute, and it became the foundation for the current day evangelical theology. Nobody was aware that this Bible was directly funded by Satanists and that it served the agenda to get Christianity on their side for establishing a new Israel that would become the headquarters of their one-world government. The Schofield Study Bible was published by the Oxford University Press, which was owned by the Rothschilds. And this whole theology was first written out by John Darby, whose family owned the most haunted castle in the world, Leap Castle, where 150 dead bodies were found in the cellars and where satanic masses were held. John Darby used all kinds of occult terms in his religious writings. He was involved in many secret societies and occult groups. And he is the one who educated Cyrus Schofield. But John Darby was an employee of the Rothschilds. He worked for the East India Company. The Scofield Study Bible literally said that everyone who supported this new Israel would be blessed by God, and everyone who did not support it would be cursed by God. So fear and intimidation was used to force Christians to be on their side, and they succeeded. In our time, the vast majority of Christianity believes thoroughly that this new political military state of Israel is indeed the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham. But they haven't got the slightest clue what's really going on here.
But I'm going to go back to the early 1800s, and I'm going to introduce you to a fellow. I don't know if you know of him or not, or who he is, but his name is John Nelson Darby. Now, this gentleman is, essentially cited as the father of modern day dispensationalism. And again, if you didn't, just to give you a refresher on dispensationalism, it's this collection of beliefs that really do tie into Zionism. And so the Zionist movement really has other arms or components to it, and dispensationalism is one of those. And they kind of tie in together to make the whole thing kind of come to fruition, if you will. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of information on his parents so you can kind of understand where he comes from. Now, his father was a defense contractor with the British Royal Navy. So if you know anything about defense contractors, they're very tight with the government because that's typically where the money flows. And when the wars take place, it's the defense contractors that are the ones that cash in. And of course, there's all kinds of kickbacks and all kinds of other things going on with that. So he was very much tied to the British government through his associations, through the military. And then also, consider these are elite groups of people that hang out. These are high class people that hang out together and, have their private parties and all of that. Now, his mother was very wealthy, which also ties into kind of this elitist group. She, interestingly enough, had family ties to Benjamin Franklin. And where the money came from, I don't know exactly, but she had a tremendous amount of family money. Now, this is interesting about Benjamin Franklin, because I was kind of wondering what's the common denominator here between her and her association with Benjamin Franklin. Well, he actually was in London, much like she was. Now, they were in London here, the Darbys, and he was there from 1757 to 1775 before he came over here, apparently. And they had this common interest, which was something called Unitarianism. Now, I had never heard of this word before. Maybe I heard of it, but I didn't really know what it meant. And so, very interesting to me, he was considered a Unitarian sympathizer, which essentially is a religious movement, this whole Unitarianism thing. It was a religious movement that essentially, what did I say here? So it just recognizes God alone. So it does not recognize Jesus Christ. It does not recognize the Holy Spirit. It only recognizes God alone. So it's very interesting how that would tie into, Judaism, because Judaism doesn't believe in a Holy Spirit, and Judaism doesn't believe in a Jesus Christ either. So this Unitarianism thing is kind of a component of Judaism, in my opinion, because it's very clear that, there's only one God that they believe in, and that's an interesting thing that they were connected in that way. It gets even more interesting as I go on here. Now, the kids were raised in London's high class, of course, Protestant society. So if you remember the last video, we talked about how the Scofield Bible had been distributed largely through the Protestant churches. So you can see how this all came about way back when, where they were starting to, the building blocks were starting. And again, just to kind of go back to the end of the millennial reign and Satan's little season, my estimation on the end of the millennial reign was about 1776, which is when Satan's little season began. And you can see that a lot of these things started to happen like immediately after, where just as soon as Satan's little season came into play, all of these people started getting really busy doing all of this stuff. So it really ties in, with other things that I've discussed on this podcast. Now, it gets even better from there. He was John Nelson Darby himself. Once he became older, he was an attorney, apparently, studied to be an attorney, decided then to be a minister. And it's interesting how there's a common thread amongst these guys where they become attorneys, scholars, or theologists, and then they become ministers. and then they write books about Zionism. So it's really interesting how that seems to just be a common thing with these guys. Now, he was one of the founders of the Plymouth Brethren Church in London. And this church is still apparently in existence to this day. And it's more of a kind of an occultish kind of thing. But at the time, it was something that was founded in London. And interestingly enough, this very church had a couple of members by the name of Edward and Emily Crowley. Now, if that last name is familiar to you, it's because Aleister Crowley, this guy was known for black magic. He was known for, all kinds of Satanist occults. Even when most everybody pretty much has heard of him or knows who he is, a very popular Satanist. So here you have, these ties between this Unitarianism, this weird, Plymouth Brethren movement, church, occultish thing going on, Satanism, kind of involved in this. Very interesting, these ties to John Nelson Darby. Now, John Nelson Darby is really kind of the originator of how this, the beginning of all of this stuff going on here.
They had an offshoot of that weird cult church from the Sabbatai and Frankists. And there was one in England. So I can't remember, but I'm going to see if it's linked to Darby.
Ooh,
I'll look
man.
it up. Yeah. I don't know,
just
ringing bells for me. So I can't remember. I know because it was basically Christianity for the Frankists. They had all this sort of like sex cult in the church. Yeah. And the Puritan movement came out of it.
You know how Aleister Crowley, I don't know if you know this or not, but he wanted to, and this isn't a new thing, he wanted to bring about Satan and the devil, which isn't real, but by doing the most bad things on earth. He thought if he killed and had sex with children.
That's Sabbatai and Frankism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Darby had a similar view. I don't want to say exactly, but it was almost where it's actually a crazy Christian. I feel like Zionism kind of does this, but like extremists, but they think if they actually do bad things, it will speed up the return of Jesus.
Yeah.
If they do these horrible things or certain things, that they will be the reason.
This is might be worth a video on doing something on this. I found this great website. Someone had done all this research into these particular people in that church. So hopefully it's still up. And it's ringing a bell, Darby. I'm going to because I didn't know the link to Crowley.
The reason it's so important to know this. So first off, I'm just going to tell you, this is a little bit of a tangent, but my dad loves Darby. Okay, I know that's weird. Look, I always ask my mom about my dad when they were dating, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I remember your dad. He got a Darby Bible, and he used to carry it around everywhere. When he first got his Darby Bible." I'm like, and when I asked my dad about
Isn't
him,
he
he's like,
Catholic,
"Oh, Darby."
Though? He's a Catholic. Darby's Protestant, right?
My dad?
Yeah.
No, my dad's not a Catholic. He claims.
But he grew up.
He might
Catholic,
as well be one.
He went to.
He grew up. Yeah.
Charismatic church.
He grew up Catholic. And then he actually was it was a Catholic movement of Catholics going to Christian churches. It's very strange. It was called Catholic Action. Okay. It stems from the Vatican II Council. Okay, the Vatican II Council. Have you ever looked into that?
Yeah. Well, Professor Wife does a lot on that, and that's that whole they're trying to unite all the churches.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
there's a name for it. I can't remember.
Ecumenism or something.
Yeah, but there's an actual name. I think like Bono from U2 was right behind it as well. He's such a dickhead. Yep. I found that Catholic movements coexist.
The reason I mentioned that is because I was really looking into Darby, and I watched so many things about Darby, and it does seem like he was almost doing like a reverse Sabbatai and Francism, but it was still like he was trying to do it from a Christian perspective, even though I don't think he was a good man, but he was trying to, it was like he was a Christian, whatever you want to call him, trying to do bad things to make Jesus come back faster. That was like his goal.
Yeah, he's basically got the Sabbatean philosophy, but
Exactly.
In those times, you couldn't be that overt with, being corrupt.
That is my opinion on how they keep this together. Like, how else could they keep this going from generations to generations to generations? They have to have a religious glue that holds them together. And I think it's the Sabbatai and Frankist idea of doing a lot of bad stuff, okay?
Yeah.
From a young age. So,
well, in our modern day, we've got Jeffrey Epstein, who they now get it all on camera. So it's like in the shadows, they're doing all these devious things, and people moving up the ranks through Freemasonry, whatever, and then, we'll put you in this powerful position. You've got this great job, blah, blah, blah. But we got you high and you fiddled with some little kid, so now you have to do what we want you to. That's how it works for them. And that's all that Sabbatai and Frankist philosophies there.
Absolutely. Or it could be similar to what you just said. It could just be as simple as, if you want to move up, you got to diddle these kids, and then you can, but we'll just make sure that we control you forever.
I think some are inclined to be, okay with that, and because they are born into these families, so they're programmed into doing that from a young age. Anyone who isn't, I think that it's easy just to give them some drugs. I mean, they've been using drugs for that kind of thing for a long time now, the pharmakia.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I'm sure you looked into this, but like those satanic families, when they do all those crazy things, like they almost make dual identities of each other, of themselves. They literally psychologically make another part of themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
And they want that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's what that creates. And I think they've been doing that for generations, for thousands of years.
Oh yeah.
Making people have split personalities. So
the next guest was used also in worshiping the devil, participated in human sacrifice rituals and cannibalism. She says her family has been involved in rituals for generations. She is currently in extensive therapy, suffers from multiple personality disorder, meaning she's blocked out many of the terrifying and painful memories of her childhood. Meet Rachel, who is also in disguise to protect her identity. You come from generations of ritualistic abuse?
Yes, my family has an extensive family tree, and they keep track of who's been involved and who hasn't been involved. And it's gone back to like 1700.
And so you were...
Right, I was born into a family that believes in this.
And does everyone else think it's a nice Jewish family? From the outside, you appear to be a nice Jewish girl?
Definitely.
And you all are worshiping the devil inside the home?
Right. There's other Jewish families across the country. It's not just my own family.
Really? And so who knows about it? Lots of people now.
I talked to a police detective in the Chicago area, and several of my friends know, and I've spoke publicly before. And
so when you were brought up in this kind of evilness, did you just think it was normal?
I've blocked out a lot of the memories I had because of my multiple personality disorder. But yes, I mean, it's like if you grow up with something, you think it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought
So what kinds of things? You don't have to give us the gory details, but what kinds of things went on in the family?
Well, there would be rituals in which babies would be sacrificed, and you would have to,
Whose babies?
There were people who bred babies in our family. No one would know about it. A lot of people were overweight, so you couldn't tell if they were pregnant or not, or they would supposedly go away for a while and then come back. The other thing I want to point out, not all Jewish people sacrifice babies. I mean,
no.
It's not a very
we kind of know
thing.
that.
I just want to point that out.
This is the first time I heard of any Jewish people sacrificing babies. But anyway, so you witnessed the sacrifice.
Right. When I was very young, I was forced to participate in that, in which I had to sacrifice an infant.
And the purpose of sacrifice is to what? Is to bring you what? What are you sacrificing for?
For power.
Uh-huh. Power. And so, were you ever used? Were you ever used yourself?
I was molested. I was raped several times.
And what's your mother doing
She's
in all of this? What's her role in all of this?
I'm not exactly what her role is. I haven't, recovered all of my memories, but her family was extremely involved. She brought me to it. Both of my parents brought me to it.
And where is she now?
She lives in the Chicago metropolitan area. She's on the Human Relations Commission of the town that she lives in, and she's an upstanding citizen. Nobody would suspect her.
Were you raised with a sense of right and wrong, Rachel?
Yeah. I mean, it's like I had both. I mean, to the outside world, everything we did was proper and right, and then there were the nights that things changed, that things just got turned around. What was wrong was right, and what was right was wrong. That's what helps to create somebody to develop MPD.
Multiple personalities.
Right.
Now, in your family, did you all call it worshiping the devil?
No,
Or
I don't know.
It was just evil, these things you did.
Right. Well, I said it was evil, and they said it was good. There's a book that I had just come across called Lilith's Cave, which is a book of Jewish mysticism and supernatural, and there's a lot in that book that relates to what I, endured when I was a child.
I have a here, and I don't know, it's not finished, but I have Herod, and then I have 3 blank spaces, and then I have Sabbatai, Zevi, Jacob Frank, and then Rothschild. And I think what I was trying to do was, did Sabbatai Zevi come from Herod, like that lineage? And I think I was trying to link, because
it's so hard.
I definitely, I know, that's why I have 3
You know why you can't?
spaces.
It's the Dark Ages.
I have Herod, space, Sabbatai Zevi, Jacob Frank, Rothschild, because you know that Jacob Frank came from Sabbatai Zevi. You know that the Rothschilds,
Well, wasn't he from? Was Zevi from? Or was he sent there from Turkey?
Yeah, he was from Turkey.
Well, that's where all the Herods ended up, in those regions.
Exactly.
So after Judea fell, they all ended up in like Armenia, Turkey. I mean, Pergamon's in Turkey. It was Greek ruled, but it's in Turkey. Yeah, and like I said, all of those Crusader knights and nobles who came back to England and Europe basically were marrying the Armenian princesses.
It's interesting because, in the Bible, it talks about the synagogue of Satan.
Yeah.
I have here, and again, these are just random notes that I have. Well, they're not random. I put them on this folder for a reason. But I have here the synagogue of the Herodians. Right. Synagogue of Rhodian, a community of Jews who came originally from the island of Rhodes. Synagogue of the Herodians.
Oh my gosh.
Synagogue of the Herodians, named after King Herod. That's what I have in my notes.
Wow, because I remember I had that theory. I said that Herod comes from Hero of Rhodes. That's what I think his name comes from. Because they all say, it's Hero, and I'm like, yeah. But he was the hero of Rhodes. He basically put so much money into building roads. And that would have been Judean money that he used taxing the crap out of the Israelites for Rome. Mm-hmm. So that's why, getting back to Mark of the Beast, I think that it's strongly linked to tax, but I'm not saying that it's not tradition of the beast as well. I mean, it's all these things, right? Yeah.
So I have these 3 guys that I was obsessed with, and one is Jacob Frank, Johann Adam Joseph Weishaupt, and Mayor Mayor Amschel Bauerberg, because that was his original name. Yeah. Bauerberg. I have Rothschild supposedly started with somebody named Isaac Elkanon Bacharach, Frankfurt, 1567. I tried to research as far back as I could with them.
Yeah, it's hard. It just goes blank.
Oh, Jacob Frank's real last name is Leibowitz. That's an interesting one. Rothschilds intermarried with the Allobrandinis. The Arabic word Allobaran means the bright one of the follower. Then I have Allobrandini has an Arabic ancestry from the Moorish invasion.
Is that where it's from? The Moorish invasion? Is it further back than that?
Well, that's what I have.
Yeah,
that's what I have.
they say. But was and then like I was saying, I always quote it. But there's a book I've got where that says the Sephardi Jews, right, Arabs. It's all based on linguistics. So their language comes from Arabic. They believe that they came out of Arabia and into North Africa and then into Europe. So was that a Moorish invasion,
Right.
We tend to think of it in terms of how the movies portray it. And then you've got Muhammad's wife, who's this incredibly rich merchant. And
which one, the Jewish one or the Catholic one? I know he had a bunch
the Catholic
of wives,
one. I think the second wife was the Jewish one, but the first
that's
wife
it.
probably was a Jewish convert as well.
Yeah.
So the first wife was the Nabatean merchant. So those families, when Nabatea fell, which was after the fall of Jerusalem, I think around that time, there was all these earthquakes and earth events, and they reckon that it was actually an earthquake that stopped Petra, being the main hub of the Nabatean culture. So Mecca was at Petra, and the Kaaba stone was at Petra, and all the old mosques point towards Petra and not towards Mecca.
That was it. Yeah, that's one of your videos.
Right, and that's and that is back to those people I linked. They've done all the geographical studies on this. This is fact that the mosques, I can't even say that either, before 600 or around the time of before 700 something, the mosques before them all point towards Petra. After that, they all point towards Mecca. And so they've moved the Kaaba stone. They're saying historically that Petra shut down because they ran out of water, and it was because of a big earthquake.
I think it's interesting that, certain things have to face Mecca, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, they have to pray towards Mecca, so the mosques will face towards Mecca so they can pray towards Mecca. So anyway, my point is that she's this rich Nabatean Petran merchant. When Petra fell, all the merchants moved to Europe and different various places. So it's likely to me, like Venice and all those kind of areas, it's likely to me that those families, they didn't just lose their wealth and just disappear. They've moved there and reestablished themselves in those areas. Or they had trading businesses there and then they've moved and reestablished themselves and become these families.
It's funny you mentioned Venice, because I just found in my notes, I have Canaan, and then I have an arrow pointing down to Phoenicians, and then I have an arrow pointing down to Venetians. So it goes from Canaan, Phoenicians. Yep. You know what I mean?
The Phoenicians were the sea trading people, and the Arabs were the land trading people. So the beast of the sea, the beast of the land, right?
And then I have here Canaanites. They actually had reddish purple dye, and then the Tyre, I think, Tyre had the purple dye, and I think the Canaanites had the reddish dye.
Yeah, I've looked into that too. Oh my god. Yeah, that's is that in my video? No, it's not, I don't think.
I was obsessed with looking into those two dyes for a while.
Yes, I was too.
Well, because the reason is there's a bunch of different reasons, but Revelation mentions scarlet and purple, and you know that the scarlet dye and the purple dye, and so if the Canaanites had the scarlet dye and the people from Tyre had the purple dye, it's just interesting.
Yeah, the purple dye was a mussel.
It was like a sea creature or something.
Sea creature, yeah.
Yeah.
The red dye is
I think it was an urchin.
The red dye is a worm from Mediterranean, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's all over that region, but it's in a special tree that they get this worm and crush it up. And
the worm, yeah.
Look, I've got no conclusive evidence to say that these people were related, but I'm 100% convinced of it. Just going on, I wish I could get evidence from somewhere, but I mean, you can get so far.
Are you talking about
Herods? Going back to the Herods and Rothschilds, and you're talking about
that's what
Sabbatai
again.
Zevi.
I was in the middle of trying to, at the time, I was trying to link them to Herod, because I have Herod at the top, and then I had 3 missing links.
And that's
and then I knew that there was
before you watched my video.
that was before you. That was before
Wow.
you.
Okay.
It was Herod, and then
That's
I have
crazy.
blank, Sabbatai, Zevi, Jacob Frank, Rothschild, and I was like, I know these three are linked, and I don't remember why I was linking them to Herod, because I have tons of notes on Herod, and
he's
I mean,
so much
with
more
good
important.
reason.
They completely just write him off in the Bible. Oh yeah, he killed all the babies in Jerusalem, where was it? Bethlehem, and that's it. No way. Him and his family are so much more important in the Bible than.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
again,
for me,
that's why I was trying to link them.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was trying to link them to the Rothschilds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like for me, I don't know if the Rothschilds are linked, because from what I've found, there's two types of Jews. So and I think the first type of Jews don't give a stuff about the others, and that's why they were willing to sacrifice them all in the
of course,
the Holocaust, right? They didn't care who died. So the first type is the Herod converts from Judea, right?
Which we know that's in the Bible.
And they're the ones that control the merchants. They're the dragon. They're the ones that control the church, started Roman Catholicism, used it to manipulate people. Because they were using the temple to manipulate people, they've thought, let's just reestablish this temple system to manipulate people with Christianity. Instead of persecuting the saints, let's just overcome the saints, right? Doesn't it say that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second group are the Ashkenazi converts, and I found through studying that it was these people that actually converted the Ashkenazi Jews, which are Magog, in my opinion. So you've got the dragon and you've got Magog. But yeah, like, I mean, I can't find that information where the families are linked. I found information that the Herods did go on in Rome. There's probably a lot more Herods, because there's Herod's sister, Herod's brother. They all had children.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Who knows where they are? They all changed their name to Roman names. We don't have the historical documents to try to trace that. But I'm convinced by how the Bible prophecy tells us it's going to work out, or it did work out, or who's involved with it, that they're one and the same sort of people. They're a family line. And yeah, I'm convinced of that.
So I don't know if you know the story, and this is related to what you're talking about, because again, I told you I was obsessed with these three men, and the Illuminati was formed actually not in 1776. It was actually first formed in 1773, and three guys went to a bar. I know it sounds like a joke, but three guys went to a bar.
It was one Irish.
And it was these three guys, and you ask yourself, what was, because I don't know if you know this or not, but Adam Weishaupt, Mayer Amschel Rothschild or Bauerberg, and Jacob Frank, those three met in, I used to have the German city somewhere in here, but they had a meeting, and that meeting was about the Illuminati.
Well, what did they have in common?
What did they have in common? The Order of the Illuminati was formed in 1773. Adam Weishaupt did the Bavarian Illuminati in 1776. But those three guys, Jacob Frank Leibowitz, Mayer Amschel Rothschild, and Adam Weishaupt, in 1773 traveled to Frankfurt, Germany together. That's where it was, Frankfurt, Germany.
Frankfurt, yep.
So, again, what were those three have in common? Were they cousins? Were they related? Because that would make a lot of sense, that those three guys are like the three pillars of this Illuminati.
They probably all went to the same synagogue.
Probably. The reason I think made that little chart, now that I'm thinking about it, where I have Herod and then space, because Rothschild and Jacob Frank, I actually have here that they are related. I think by somehow I figured this out, because we already know that Jacob Frank is from Sabbatai Zevi. So it goes Sabbatai Zevi, Jacob Frank, and Rothschild. Well, look, we talk about Sabbatai Zevi. Why would he just entrust his his whole movement, his religion, to just nobody. Jacob Frank was most likely one of his relatives. Okay,
I agree. I mean, when you
and
go
where
back,
did Sabbatai Zevi come from?
when you go back,
He came from Turkey.
Sabbatai Zevi declared himself to be the Jewish Messiah in the year 1666. This false Messiah led the largest Messiah movement in Jewish history and attracted more than half the population of European Jews. How did he do it? By promising to return the Jews to their ancestral homeland in Palestine. Sabbatai Zevi made everything that was holy unholy. He rejected the rules of the Jewish holy books and every standard of Jewish decency. There would be no more guilt or sin or right or wrong. No more sexual taboos, no more 10 commandments, no more fasting. Instead, there would be feasting. Sabbatai Zevi's immoral leadership finally fell from grace when the Sultan of Turkey threatened him with torture unless he converted to Islam. Sabbatai converted to Islam, but he brought his infectious evil theology with him. 1 century later, Jacob Frank proclaimed himself to be the reincarnation of Sabbatai Zevi and the living Messiah for all Jews. Not even Sabbatai Zevi was as evil as Jacob Frank and his disciples. Jacob Frank rejected traditional Judaism. He reversed the truth and told his followers, since we can't all be saints, let's all be sinners. The best way to imitate God, said Frank, is to cross every boundary, transgress every taboo, and mix, as God did, the sacred with the profane. Orgies, incest, rape, and sexual intercourse with children, including sodomy on young boys, were no longer sinful. In 1773, Jacob Frank traveled to Frankfurt, Germany, the birthplace of the Illuminati. That's where he formed an unholy alliance with Adam Weishaupt and Mayor Amschel Rothschild's banking dynasty. The ambition of the Rothschild dynasty was to win control of the world's gold, central banks, and wealth. The Rothschilds sent John Jacob Astor, Jacob Schiff, and Paul Warburg to America, where they influenced the privatization of the Federal Reserve banking system and the dismantling of the American Constitution. The goal of Weishaupt and the Jesuits was to take control of the Vatican and its hierarchy of Catholic clergy. Weishaupt formed the Order of the Illuminati and infiltrated the Freemasonic lodges with his doctrine until every Masonic lodge in every nation accepted it. The Frankist goal was the destruction and replacement of Jewish ethics with a satanic religion based on the exact opposite of Jewish teachings. When this unholy alliance of conscienceless men was seeded, a cancerous war against humanity erupted. With Rothschild financing, Jacob Frank became fabulously wealthy and was put in charge of spreading a Luciferian theology that would be the hidden hand behind future wars and revolutions. Jacob Frank's followers were called Sabbatian Frankists. They practiced witchcraft and occult rituals, including animal and human sacrifices. Lucifer, they declared, was the true God. The Sabbatian Frankists expanded their movement by masquerading as converts to other religions. They converted to Catholicism and to Islam, where they embedded themselves and spread their Luciferian infection as closeted crypto-Jews. The Frankists traded their wives and daughters with members and with powerful non-members who they needed to seduce into their cult. Jewish professor Gershon Scholem called Jacob Frank one of the most frightening men in Jewish history. By 1776, Orthodox Jewish rabbis and leaders rejected Jacob Frank and the pagan invasion of evil that took hold in 18th century Europe. They declared Jacob Frank and his Luciferian followers to be heretics. Jewish author and historian Dr. Henry Makow has thoroughly researched the Sabbatian Frankist movement.
The Sabbatian Frankists were out-and-out Satanists. They believe that they have to defy the kind of natural morality, defy any kind of natural law, defy God, and they actually indulge in every kind of depravity as a form of worship, because they worship Satan. And they promoted promiscuity, and that's where our promiscuity today comes from. It's 200 or 300 years old. There's nothing new or avant-garde about it. They promoted incest. They promoted pedophilia and every kind of sexual depravity.
Rabbi Marvin Antelman charges that the world today is ruled by a Sabbatai Frankist satanic cult that has conspired with the Illuminati to destroy all religions and fuse all nations into one.
I have joining me today Dr. and Rabbi Marvin Antelman. Welcome to the show, Rabbi.
Thank you very much for having me here. First of all, let me say this. There are a lot of conspiracy theories out there. I'm not interested in theories. I'm interested in facts. So the scholarship over the years that I've utilized are sources that are impeccable. A man by the name of Sabbatai Zevi, who was born in 1626 and died in 1676, came along and said, I am the Messiah. And he had a tremendous following. When it was realized that his following was so great, there would be problems, the Sultan gave Sabbatai a choice. Either you die or convert to Islam. So he converted. Now, there were about 1 million followers prior to the conversion. When the conversion happened, then there was disillusionment among the Jews. But there were some diehard people who set up different cults of Sabbatai Zevi. And the worst one of them was called the Domeh, which was a secret organization. And the Domeh was based in Turkey and in Salonika. And the Domeh gave rise to these terrible orgies that went on, which became part of the immorality theology of Sabbatai Zevi, corrupted later on. He apostatized himself 10 years before his death. So when he died in 1676, he had these cults doing all kinds of evil.
And the reason that these followers of Sabbatai Zevi were doing evil was because what?
Here's the thing. The Talmud says that the Messiah would come when everybody's good or everybody's bad. There is such a saying in the Talmud. So the Sabbatians said like this, it's impossible for everybody to be good, it's easy to be bad. So they turned around the Torah and they said if you do an evil deed, then you will use up the energy of the universe and it'll collapse and you'll force the Messiah to come because you will have used up all the evil in the world. So whenever they engage in an orgy, they would make a bracha, and every day they would figure out a way to do as many sins as possible. Like if you eat chaylev, you're chayav karet. In other words, if you eat fat, according to the Torah, you're to be excommunicated from your people. So they would eat fat. It was prohibited, non-kosher fat, from a kosher animal, which is chaylev, which is in that category, like eating blood from a kosher animal. So
they would do the opposite.
They do the opposite.
In order to hasten the
coming of the Messiah. After Sabbatai Zevi died, one of the most powerful Sabbatian cults, as they were called, was a transformation of the Domeh, the most extreme cult, to Europe through an insidious person by the name of Jacob Frank. He died in 1791. Now the Frankists started to spread and take over entire communities and make them satanic. And you can actually trace a line historically, which I do in my book, to the CFR from Sabbatai Zevi, and another organization called the Illuminati, which was founded in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt. And they were involved also in the French Revolution, which is also well documented.
So what you're saying is that there really does exist a new world order, that it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy.
Right, and Professor Katz wrote a book called The Jews and Freemasonry, which gives a history of the interface between Jews and some of the cults that derived out of Sabbatai Zevi. But the next big cult that came from Sabbatai Zevi after the Domeh organization, which is in Turkey, the next big cult were the Frankists, as I mentioned with Jacob Frank. So Jacob Frank, the Vad Arboretzot, the Council for Lands, wanted to deal with Frank, and they decided to have a big excommunication on the 20th of Sivan 250 years ago. And there, they made the following rulings. They said everybody that is a Frankist is to be excommunicated.
From the Jewish people.
From the Jewish people, bastards to the 10th generation, is what it said. And they prohibited people, because the Frankists were into Kabbalah, they prohibited the study of Kabbalah until you were 30 or 40 years old and you had a belly full, as they said, full of Talmud. Only then could you study the Kabbalah.
Right.
And they said they're women or whores. And they're hereby excommunicated from our people to the 10th generation.
This is what the Council of For Lands labeled the Frankists, because they so deviated from Judaism and all that Judaism holds to be true and righteous. These people went off and made basically their own deformed religion, and so the Jews wanted nothing to do with them. They kicked them out.
That is correct.
Okay. Are there non-Jews that joined this Sabbatian cult?
No, non-Jews did not join the Sabbatian cult, but the non-Jews did join the Illuminati.
Yeah, look in all the early Rothschild information. They were all rabbis, and there were several different families sort of intermarrying with each other. So they were like rabbinical families. Yeah. And then the Rothschilds specifically were giving the bankings. But that comes from the Oppenheim family, where they were bankers before the Rothschilds were. So, I mean, they're just an offshoot of them.
Yeah, and again, are they just going to give this power, this banking power, to just anyone? No, it's most likely a relative.
Oh, yeah. And that's what I found with doing of that German study, is they're all related somehow. Or they're all friends. And then the Mendelssohn family, who's the Rothschild family, and they're all linked in with the German, that movement.
Was Bruno Bauer in it or no? Any part of something like that?
He was around that time. So this is where I started getting the idea of this, because Bruno Bauer, they make out he's sort of this poor kid, or just middle class. And then I found that information that he was helping the Rothschilds, he was on a train with Rothschilds that crashed. You start seeing that they're all in these grassroots movements, and they're all behind these movements and art.
Like philosophical movements?
Yeah, philosophical movements, yeah. And they're all behind them, and they're all these big families related to aristocratic families, and
Karl Marx.
Yeah, Marx, and they make out they're just these average people, but they're not, and they've got all this backing, but they go to the working class and they start spreading these ideas to people.
And how different is that from today? Do you see the leftist, the ideology is still around, that insane ideology?
They're in the universities, and they're
they've always been in these universities.
German Romanticism. That's what it's called. I learned about it in school when I was studying art, because I liked the paintings. But then when I started looking into Bruno Bauer, and I started looking into a lot of these people were in Germany, and I started looking at that romantic movement, because that's where the Nazi party came out of, because they started preaching all of this history. And I looked at it because my belief is that the German people and people of Europe are descendants of the lost tribes. So I was sort of looking into that, and I started looking at how these people were preaching to Europeans of their history and their mythology. So that's what German Romanticism pushed, is all this German mythology. And a lot of Germans started getting into these Viking sort of roots, fairy tales, not necessarily the truth. All of this Aryan kind of belief system started to spring up. They had to do it earlier. They had to plant that idea in the minds of German people, the society, for them to start to take on this Nazi kind of Aryan German roots. So this Viking kind of ancestry, and it's happening today. What they do is they take white people away from the truth about their history, and they push them into this, this Viking, what's it called?
Worshipping runes.
Worshipping runes
Viking and all these
paganism, Viking paganism.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
So you've got Thor and
Odin.
Odin, that's it. Yeah, Odin worship.
Well,
now, I think that obviously that all that stuff's there, but it ties back to biblical Israelite. You know how the northern tribes, they paganized things. They paganized.
Of course they did.
And so they paganized the real worship. And you can read into Odin and Thor and all of that story. It's all just Israelite stories being paganized. So I started to look into that. And this is where they're pushing young white men or European men into being, I'm the alpha male Viking pagan worshipper. And that's all stemmed from that German romanticism. I'd be curious to know what Germans actually believed before that happened, because that made that soil fertile for Hitler then to come in and push the Nazi party. And Hitler was supposedly a Rothschild too, so...
Of course, a Rothschild bastard, I heard, but he was in the cult. But also, this is around us all the time, because think about Moon Day. Well, there's Sunday, Moon Day, and then you have, I always forget what Tuesday is. Well, Wednesday is actually Woden's Day, because it was actually Woden. Then you have Thor's Day. Okay?
Oh, shoot. Yeah, right.
So we see this every day of our lives. Tuesday is actually Tyr's Day is Tyr. That was a god. Okay. Tyr, Tyr.
Yep.
So that's what Tuesday. Tuesday is Tyr's Day, Woden's Day, Thor's Day.
Friday's probably
Frigg's Day.
Freya, Frigg.
Or Frigg. It's either Freya or Frigg or whatever.
Freya's
whatever.
The mother goddess. I think Frigg is a.
Who is Odin's wife?
It's Freya.
And then Saturn's Day, right?
Yes.
So you have this.
Yes.
This is not like people. I love how people's like, you'll be like, well, why do we need to know this stuff? Well, you use these terms every day of your life, okay? Every single day is based off of Thor or Woden or Tyr. It's around us all the time. That's what our society is almost based off of.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just looking at freak. Sounds like a swear word.
I thought it was Frigg.
Yeah, it is. Frigg is a German goddess.
That's it.
But I'm just wondering if she's related
Frigg's
to
Day.
It's the Frigg and Freya common origin hypothesis.
But my guess is they took for Friday Frigg's Day.
Yeah, they think she may have descended from a common Proto-Germanic figure, as suggested by numerous similarities found between the two deities. So yeah, it's probably
So when we talk about this stuff, people use these words every day and have no idea what they mean or where they even came from. And we know that Hitler was into the occult. He was into Madame Helena Blavatsky's stuff, and all that stuff goes back. And
she's really
the same
interesting.
Stuff.
Yeah. Blavatsky, she's very interesting. Like, I think what a lot of what she says is probably true. She's giving away a lot of information, but she's one of them. So she's
You also have to remember, we have access to things that most people throughout history did not have access to.
Yep.
Okay, the internet. So she wrote that stuff. Helena Blavatsky, Albert Pike, they wrote these things not expecting anyone to be able to look into it.
That's right. Yeah, 100%.
These things were passed down from families and secret societies, and so that's why it is the truth their truth. What I believe it, that they believe that stuff.
Well, where did she get the money to travel the world for her whole life, gathering all this stuff together? She was wealthy.
Right.
Her family was wealthy, but obviously someone's been like her patron, as they call it. They've given her money to go around studying and collecting all of this information.
She's obviously part of one of these bloodlines. I mean, I talk about these bloodlines.
She's from the Ukraine.
Yeah, that's definitely Khazarian.
Yeah, it's big, and it's interesting because she's the one who I got onto about the Nabatean agriculture. So she believed that the Nabateans from Iraq were the Nabateans from the Levant, same people. But historians will not link them up together. They will not. Oh no, they're different people.
Of course not.
Yeah, I mean, come on, it's obvious. Nabu. The Babylonians and the worship of the god Nabu.
Yeah.
So when you have that piece of the puzzle, from the head of the statue of Nebuchadnezzar all the way down to Herod, it all just links up. And you're like, oh, the Bible makes 100% sense on what it's saying now. And that's why I can't think that it's not true. Because, okay, maybe I don't have all of the historical evidence, but the Bible is telling me this. This is where it's going. And then you've got Herod, who's Nabatean. His mother's a Nabatean princess. You know, he's Babylonian. This is where all this Babylonian crap's coming into the temple. People like to say it's come from the people returned from Babylon in the exile. And, yeah, it probably was, or could have been. But I'm more inclined to think it's come from Herod and all his appointees he's put in the temple.
Absolutely. I mean, it could have been a mixture of both, too.
Yeah.
You know?
But you look at the Nabatean religion, and it's basically the same as Zeus, which comes...
yes.
So it's the same. It's a storm god with the same story as Zeus and the mother goddess, the father. It's same as Odin and Thor. Some of the archaeology they've found, it's basically a zodiac with a woman in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically Kabbalistic Babylonian religion. It's just got a different name, or it's the same bloody thing.
And what is that today? It is the Catholic Church.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Jupiter.
Jupiter. Yep.
I mean, I've looked into. Oh man, I wish I had my notes.
It was Jupiter. Yes, Jupiter worship. That comes up in there.
Right.
Yeah. So and remember, I think the Catholics tried to. The Romans tried to throw the Jupiter worshippers out of Rome because they were telling fortunes. Yeah. So
I remember that. I remember that in your video.
Yeah. Where did they come from?
Wasn't it Nabatea? Or the Nabateans? Or
I think they were Babylonian.
Or
they were Babylonian.
Babylonian. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. A big merchant route that goes from Babylon all the way around Nabatea. The Edomites betrayed the Israelites, the southern kingdom, so that they could have the trading routes that were all going through those regions because it's big money. Yeah. And that's why I say, getting back to the mark of the beast. So Solomon got the 666 talents of gold from the king of Tyre, who was the sea merchant, right? And why are they getting that? It's because Solomon was right smack bang in the middle of the trading routes. The earth, the land, so the Nabateans were in control of that. Muhammad's wife was a merchant from Nabatea. All of that money and spice and that coming in from across from China, all of it was land, traveled on camels. Some of it was sea up through the from up around Arabia. They would bring stuff from India on boats, but they had to then load it onto camels to get it across land, up through Jerusalem, and then it would go to the Phoenicians and Tyre. They would take it across the sea and vice versa to Europe, right? So that trading route went all the way up to until like the 1400s, where it just became sea travel because it was all cut off by their creation, which was Islam. So I think it came back to bite them in the butt, basically, because they had to create the Islamic faith to unite the Arabic people, but it really backfired on them a lot, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't control them. They couldn't control. I mean, they eventually, I think now they have control of it.
Yes.
Because
obviously.
You know. So.
Well, you know, the story of Lawrence of Arabia is really interesting. The British control of Arabia and the oil, but the Saudis control it all.
Isn't the Sassoon family related to the Rothschilds?
I think
so.
That? Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but
I have. The hair shampoo, the Dal Sassoon. That's what I've heard.
Right.
Did you want to talk a little bit about the Mark of the Beast?
So, I mean, look, the Mark of the Beast is only mentioned in the Bible, aside from in the Old Testament with Solomon, with 666.
Solomon is 1 Kings 10.
What about in Revelation, though?
I think is Revelation 13, maybe?
Revelation 13, 16, 17.
It's just because Revelation 12 is where the dragon comes out. And then straight after the beasts come out of the sea and the earth, and then they receive the Mark of the Beast. It's interesting that in 1 Kings where it's talking about Solomon receives 666 talents of gold from the king of Tyre. Just before that, he actually receives 120 from the Queen of Sheba. Now, talking about merchant routes, as I was saying, Israel, Jerusalem was right in the middle of those merchant routes. They had to go through that country. They had to pay tolls, basically. So that's why I've said in my videos that Jerusalem is that woman, the whore of Babylon, because the merchant routes mainly come out of Babylon and all those places, but she's whoring herself for the money of the merchant routes, right? So Solomon's building the temple with all this money, and it talks about the whore of Babylon, all the spices and all of the things that are from the merchant route that are in her that she's drunk on, and you know what I mean? It says that in Revelation.
So you think that the whore of Babylon is Jerusalem?
Because she's the whore of Babylon. She's not Babylon. Or it could be
though.
It could be that she is Babylon. She's come out of Babylon. It's the Babylonian. But see, and then it goes on after that chapter 10 and 11. King Solomon loved many foreign women, together with the daughters of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Amorites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, from the nations whom Yahweh had said to the sons of Israel, "You shall not go into them, nor shall they come into you." So this is from the Keys of the Kingdom. But I just wanted to say about the Queen of Sheba. So they like to make us think that Sheba is in Ethiopia, but it's not. I think in my studies, I did a look into it. It's in Arabia.
Ooh, okay. Well, that
right.
That
so you've got the
sense.
Queen of Sheba from Arabia coming to Solomon, right? So you're talking about that earth route, merchant route, and the King of Tyre, king of the sea merchant route, coming to Solomon, giving him 666 talents of gold. She's giving him 120 talents. Why are they giving all their wealth to Solomon? What for? What the hell? You're so amazing, Solomon. I'm just going to give you all this wealth and gold.
Well, it was obviously because he was basically the king of that area, which was you can't go anywhere unless you pay him.
Exactly, right? So it's like it's a toll or a tax or a whatever. Solomon's saying it's talking about Solomon building the temple, but he's basically, because he uses all this wealth to build the temple. But where's he getting all the wealth? It's because they're using his land and his country to pass through for their merchant routes. So Sheba and Tyre. So this is just.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what a woman is represented? Like, you know what a woman means in the Bible? A woman means the church, like a church.
Church, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Because that's why we're all the bride of Christ. Because it doesn't mean I'm a woman. It just means that the church is represented by women. That's why it says a whole. That's why. Look, that's why I don't know if you like this or not, but that's the mother of harlots and the whore of Babylon. I do think that it means like a mother church, which is the Roman Catholic Church, which is like, I do think that is because it has to be a church. It has to be a church, because when they say you're a whore, that means you are going away from the church. Okay, like another ideology, another like Hinduism is tempting you like a whore. Okay, that's why they call it that.
But it all ties in, because if my theory is right, and other people have this theory too, that the Roman Church was started by the Edomites from the temple, because as I was going to say earlier, that we were talking about Sabbatai, Zevi, the Sanhedrin and all of that group moved to Syria. They moved up into Syria, up towards Turkey and up into those areas. And then Pergamon, it says Pergamon's where Satan's seat was. But yeah, so like if they were bringing this Babylonian mystery religion from Babylon through the Edomite kings of Herod, who established his people in the temple, and then they were the Jupiter worshippers in Rome, who then together started the Roman Catholic Church, because they already had the temple system of how they controlled the people. Now they've set Roman Catholic Church is basically the temple system. They wear the little hats and everything. But
it's basically pagan. It's paganism.
Yeah, they've hijacked the Christianity because they realized how much that was taking off and people were following it, giving them freedom. So like, okay, let's kill the Christians. No, we can't do that anymore. We're going to have to hijack Christian belief and make it go our way. Just like they did with the temple. They hijacked the true Hebrew faith, and it says that the Sanhedrin had all these extra rules, just like the Kabbalah, the Talmud, that they'd made up. They were putting heavy weights and burdens on the people, and they created another door to the temple. I mean, that's historic. They had another door to the temple where they'll try people under their own laws. That's what Jesus was really cracking it about. You know, they're putting these heavy weights on people that aren't even gods. Like, why are you doing this?
Right.
And the Catholic Church does the same. So, like, if she's a woman that's a church, you know, that's what I've said in the past. Like, the woman goes into the wilderness. She's running away from the persecution in the wilderness. And then all of a sudden, out of the wilderness comes this whore riding a beast.
Yeah.
So I think that that's the church being hijacked. So
that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not saying that the people of the church are all going to be whores of Babylon, but we've got the church running away from persecution, and who persecutes them? Like Rome. Rome persecutes them, but who's running Rome at that point? That's my point. Like, was it Herod's? Because is Vespasian a Herod? They're all thick as thieves with the Herods, the Roman emperors and everything. And then, yeah, you've got her running away into the wilderness, trying to hide from persecution. But then she comes out and she's riding a beast, and she's a harlot of Babylon. So, but anyway, that's why I think because it says where, well, it could be Rome, but like it's where it says where our Lord was crucified, and the only one place that he could be crucified is Jerusalem. I think that guy you sent me, he says, oh, well, they put crucifixes up everywhere, so they continually keep crucifying him. I mean, that just kind of seems a bit lame to me. I think it's where he was actually crucified. Yeah. And who controls Jerusalem now? I mean, the Catholic Church set out the decree in the Crusades for the Crusaders to go take Jerusalem. They've been trying to control it. Who controls it now? It's Rome. It's broken into three, the four portions of Islam, Roman Catholicism, the Armenian Roman Catholicism, and the Jews.
Did you know
the Babylonian Jews, might I add?
Did you know that Napoleon was trying to set up the nation of Israel, but he couldn't? Did you know that?
Yeah, I think
that's one of the things that he was.
Yeah.
I just find that so interesting that like nobody really knows that. Everyone knows who Napoleon is, but they don't know that he tried to start up the nation. So that's how long ago they've had that idea. To do that.
Yep.
You know,
they're obsessed with it.
So why do they want that land? Why? Because they think it's their right.
It comes down to the blessing of Jacob. That's my reason for why they're obsessed with having that portion of land.
But you can see it. They went to war. They had wars to get that land, to get that nation formed. So that is an obsession because they spent billions or however much to have wars and to slaughter people just to get
slaughtered billions of people. Yeah. When Jesus basically tells us that's done away with now, that fig tree withered and died. And now the kingdom is at hand, and it's a spiritual kingdom in your heart. Nobody can control it, and nobody can be king of it except him. You know what I mean? And so any Christian worth their salt would be like, well, I don't want anything to do with that place over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and your body is a temple, and these Christians are waiting for a third temple to be built.
I know.
My mother being one of them. Okay.
Maybe it's her fear of blasphemy.
Tongues. It's the tongues.
Right. She might be afraid. She seems to be terrified of blaspheming the Holy Spirit too.
No, what it is it's those. It's like those big preachers that
Yeah.
brainwashed her into thinking that you have to bless Israel. You have to bless Israel. Okay.
Scumbags. I can just picture what's his name, Kenneth Copeland.
That's a demon. Okay.
He's a sleazy scumbag. I don't know how people can't see it. I was going to ask you a question. Your dad's family, do you think they're related to some of these they're all related to Augustine, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is it just where that name comes from, or you can actually link it right back?
I do recall really diving into my last name and my family lineage and stuff, and like I don't want to say for sure. Even my dad said this though, that I think we might be related to one of the Caesars.
Right.
Too.
Okay.
What's crazy is this came up in my own research, and my dad said it too. And again, is it crazy to think that St. Augustine didn't come from one of the Caesars lineage? I mean, everyone knows who St. Augustine.
He would have 100%.
Come on.
That's what I'm saying. These families, like from the early, at some point in like the Roman Church, when it started, like I said in my video the other day, which was supposedly 580 or something, right? I think that's when it really kicked off with who's controlling it. But or maybe beforehand, they've incorporated the apostles and their students with that to make themselves look legitimate, and or they've sent people into those groups to infiltrate them, then sort of convert to their way of thinking.
Oh, of course.
You know, from the very early start of the Roman Catholic Church, these black nobility families, which is why they're called black nobility, and that is they're linked to merchants. And number two, all of their firstborn sons went into the church. They were popes, they were cardinals. So I mean, 100% he would have been related to the politics as well as the religion.
But do you really think these Caesars, these families of Caesar and Herod and everything, do you think they just disappeared? Like with all the power and all the influence that they had? No. I definitely think that it just went from the last Caesar, which was Romulus Augustulus. But he was the last Caesar. Mm-hmm. Okay. After the last Caesar, then you get the popes starting to run things. So you have the Caesars ruling militarily, and then it's just switching up to the popes ruling religiously. Yeah. It's just like two different, it's like they're just switching to, okay, we can't, and you said this earlier, we can't just slaughter all the Christians. They don't even care anymore. They almost want to die, you know? Like they don't. Yeah. So that's when they're like, okay, we gotta try and.
They tried to stamp it out through violence and just killing it out, but it didn't work. So they had to change it somehow, change their tactic.
And they did by masking as Christianity. If we can't beat it, let's become it, right?
Yeah. I just want to say here, Revelation 13, it's got the secret to the mark of the beast is basically here is wisdom. Him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Now, if it's tradition, that's not the number of a man, is it? I mean, man keeps traditions. Like obviously
man invented tradition. Man did create tradition, though. Man invented that concept.
I know. I'm just saying. I mean, I can see how tradition is part of it, but it's specifically saying it's the number of a man. And the only other instance in the Bible is in First Kings, where it's either the king of Tyre or it's Solomon himself.
In that case, then I would say it's the Pope. I'm not saying it's like one man as a Pope, like Pope Francis. I'm saying that the Pope has a lot of control. Okay?
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
he does. And
I think that even today, more control than people realize.
So there's been some people that I've talked to about things, and they were like, why is it important to know the earthly things, like the cosmology of the earth? Vaccines are bad. You know, viruses aren't real. We never went to the moon. The moon's not a rock, most likely a light. Why does it matter? My dad said this. He's like, why would I care? Why does it matter? And the reason it matters is because it's the truth. Okay. I know those things are not in the Bible. Well, some of them actually are in the Bible, but I know it's not exactly like the Word of God, but it's still the truth. These things that, and it's just funny because you could take these things that we're trying to say about the Bible to Christians and they look at you crazy, but there's other things just like talking about the cosmology or viruses not being real, and people will look at you like you're crazy. And it's again, like it's the same, but what I'm trying to say is when you're trying to tell someone the truth about something and they're brainwashed or NPC or they just they will look at you like you're speaking another language. And why it's saying it because it's related to the truth. The truth. And that's I just think that the truth is so because Jesus is truth. So truth is very important. So some people might say, who cares about the cosmology or who cares about if viruses are real? Because the truth, it helps you level up your understanding of everything. Because the Bible actually does. I always use this example, but does the Bible say beware of viruses and germs, or does the Bible say beware of Armageddon?
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Which one does it tell you to beware of? Okay.
Well, there's a lot of cleanliness laws as well in the Old Testament. So obviously there's something that can make you ill by being unclean, right?
Exactly. If you look at it was my documentary part 4, I think, where it went, or maybe it was 4 or 5, where it went into the HIV and AIDS stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
And the one guy was talking about how, and this guy didn't believe viruses were real, and he was saying how the gay men were going into bathhouses that were wet, like there was sweat, there was they kept it hot in there, and that's a place where bacteria and fungus and stuff can live.
Not to mention, right, is I've heard stories they'd have like, I don't know, 100 partners, but like a lot of partners even in one night that were taking party drugs, all kinds of drugs. They would have been staying up late, completely run down. Their immune system would have been stuffed and really unhealthy.
Unhygienic, though.
Johnny Depp, and I don't know how accurate to reality that movie was, but he's doing the same thing, living the same lifestyle. He's drunk all the time. He's not eating properly. He's hanging around in whorehouses. They're obviously not clean.
Right.
It's the same kind of thing. Yeah.
It is, but it's a combination of everything. Like he was drinking all the time. The multiple partners, probably not very hygienic. Okay. Eating bad. So all of that mixed together. It's not just one. One thing is bad, but if you put it all together, it's going to have an effect.
And that's, you go into the Levitical laws and it's talking about cleanliness and righteousness, all those kinds of things. Like it's a combination of, like if you're going to be unclean and live an unrighteous lifestyle, it's going to be that combination that makes you. I mean, if you want to get all occult, it's as above, so below. The above has to match the below. If your spiritual life and health is good, then your physical life and health generally should be good as well.
That is a factor. Now, I always tell people this. What makes you ill is what you eat, what you breathe, what you drink, what you think, what you believe. That. And then there's another one that I added in. It's called dangerous encounters, which is like if you get a bug bite or if you get bit by a snake or something, you're going to having a reaction, or like.
But those things are unclean animals, right?
Yeah.
So snakes would be unclean. A lot of bugs are. They're in a gross. I mean, it's like spiders. Spiders that I think you were talking about them once. We have them here. Whitetail spiders. They bite you and your flesh can rot.
Even and going back to the Levitical or all that, the laws back then, they even had stuff about like their houses. Now I know it could represent a spiritual aspect, but they said like if there's blemishes on your house or you know what I'm talking about, if there's spots in your, I think that was talking about mold, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it could be. It could be, yeah. Yep.
Because it said like if the spot gets black, okay, well that's like black mold, right?
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. Yep.
It even says like tear down the whole house and stuff if there's like these blemishes or spots in your house.
Right.
Turn
Okay.
black.
Wow.
And I really
haven't
think
read
that meant
but
mold.
yeah.
I definitely see how there could be a spiritual aspect to it too, like in your house, if there's black spots, if there's like sin or if there's bad stuff going on, then just tear down the whole house and start over. But,
and if you want to be filthy, dirty, and live like an animal,
yeah,
you know, like then you got to get sick.
Exactly. And again, I just find it fascinating that there was all those laws back then for cleanliness and eating right and clean water and, you know, don't drink blood and stuff like that.
Again, they had to have that information given to them because their hearts were hard or they were basically uneducated. Going back to what we've learned, I mean, I know personally it's taken years to learn what I have. Like when I first started learning about the Jews, for example, like I was kind of like, oh, what's this Nazi? You know, you're just being prejudiced. And then, but I always knew there was something not quite right about them. And then I started researching into it and I'm like, yeah, wow, he's right.
Right.
But just basically being introduced to that information at first, my reaction was, hang on a minute, because of what I know. My heart's hard to that information, but it took me a while to learn it. And you know, most people will never learn it. And I think that's just part of that is a spiritual thing too. You're inclined to actually learn it, believe it. So whereas other people will just go, oh no, these people are conspiracy theorists and they're full of whatever.
So first off, I view it as a trap because there are people who find out the truth about the Jewish stuff and then they end up liking Hitler or idolizing.
I know.
Okay? And that is a trap. My friend Dan. And I'm like, bro, that is a trap because Hitler was a puppet too. He
loved the Jesuits. And I'm like, he loved the Catholic Church. How can he be any good?
They've been kicked out of the same amount of countries, by the way. The Jesuits and the Jews.
Oh, really? They go together, hand glove.
Look, I wish I could find it. There was like a clause I found from, I don't remember which country it was. Might have been like one of the Scandinavian countries where you weren't allowed to be one of those and come in the country. I don't remember which country it was, but anyways, Trump is kind of the same way. I'm not saying that he's like Hitler, but what I'm saying is it's a trap.
Yeah.
Because he's a puppet. That you have to, like, these people have to understand that anyone that's in power. I don't care if it was Hitler, Mao, Biden, Trump. They were all put there because they will listen to what they're told. They're meant to be like an actor. They're just an actor.
Yep.
Okay. Reading their script. They're doing what they're told. And whoever can get to that level is always going to be somebody that will do exactly what they're told.
Because you can't do these things on your own. You cannot, anything in life, you can't, like it's that saying, no man's an island. You can't even become a manager at a business without somebody else helping you along the way. You just don't get there on your own. We had a lot of, going off on a tangent here, when COVID happened, a lot of the tradies, or tradesmen, we call them tradies, I don't know what you call them, but they had a big protest because they didn't want the jab. And there was like thousands of them. I don't know how many, but there was a lot protesting. And you would think a union would support that many in an industry saying, no, I'm not doing it. They were just completely towing the line of the government and Dan Andrews, who was in at the time when, I don't know if you've heard of him, he was like one of the worst lockdowns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, it was a horrible, horrible time.
I don't know how much research you've done into mask wearing. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's toxic.
I did all the research for anyone that doesn't want to do it. It's basically killing people slowly. It's cumulative damage to the brain, to the lungs, and people are doing it themselves. Okay. I don't know if you ever saw the Club of Rome guy that said, this was like a few years before COVID. And he said that, I'm gonna actually post this in this video after I mention it because it's such an important video. He goes, basically, the world has too many people.
Oh,
and he actually told the person, he goes, I'm sure I could speak freely, but if you want to edit this out, you can. And they didn't. And he goes, the world has, I don't know, 6, 8 billion. And he goes, we have to get that down. And I hope that we can do this in a way where everyone participates.
Is this collapse, or is this, what do you call this if you don't call it collapse? We are in a period of collapse now, which will intensify. You know, in the old days, we had many great empires: China, the Persians, the Romans, the Germanic Empire was important for a time. You know, the Persians could collapse, or the Romans could collapse, as they did, and it by and large didn't affect too much the other empires. But now, you know, you have Italy's banks go bankrupt, and suddenly the whole global system is having problems. That's the consequence of globalization. Well, since you are able to edit out all the stuff you don't like, I can speak honestly. I don't expect that we're going to avoid collapse. I'm not sure what it will look like. I mean, and in one way or another, we are so far, globally, we are so far above the population and the consumption levels which can be supported by this planet that I know in one way or another it's going to come back down. So I don't hope to avoid that. I hope that it can occur in a civil way, and I mean civil in a special way. Peaceful. Peace doesn't mean that everybody's happy, but it means that conflict isn't solved through violence, through force, but rather in other ways. And so that's what I hope for. That we can, I mean, the planet can support something like 1 billion people, maybe 2 billion, depending on how much liberty and how much material consumption you want to have. If you want more liberty and more consumption, you have to have fewer people. And conversely, you can have more people. I mean, we could even have 8 or 9 billion, probably, if we have a very strong dictatorship, which is smart. Unfortunately, you never have smart dictatorships. They're always stupid. So, but if you had a smart dictatorship and a low standard of living, you can have it. But we want to have freedom, and we want to have a high sentence. So we're going to have 1 billion people. And we're now at 7, so we have to get back down. I hope that this can be slow, relatively slow, and that it can be done in a way which is relatively equal, you know, so that people share the experience, and you don't have a few rich, you know, trying to force everybody else to deal with it. So those are my hopes. I mean, these are pretty pessimistic hopes, you know, but I mean, that's what lies ahead.